And hello again, boys and girls. Welcome back to the stream. It's, of course, your host, Marley Startled. And today is another casual day. So I finished the Call of Duty campaign. That's going to be uploaded to YouTube shortly. And now I'm either making a decision between going to Monster Hunter Rise or moving on to The Witcher 2, Witcher 3, because I want to give Witcher 3 a go again. Now I've got a more souped up laptop. But for the most part, I'll be carrying on the campaign. I don't know where I left off, but I suppose we will find out. So if I just click on this to make sure the thing's up. There we are. Okay, so on we go. On y va. Russia. RG. Load up. Let me just assume the gamer position. Make sure not to have a headset. I don't get the head caved in look, you know. But give it time. I'm already getting the hunched gamer look. So here's a little sit rep with the last few days. We took 66,000 casualties, which isn't that bad, and the Germans have lost around 136 tanks, which is also not very bad, even though we lost 876. So down in the south, we have formed up our positions. We have moved over, I believe, some troops in defense, and I don't know what we were doing next. Can I move more troops around? No. Okay. And in the north, we're starting to slow down the German push. Hello, Moldova. Welcome back. Casual couple of turns of Gary Grigsby today, just to go through the work day, and then potentially the Witcher 3 or Monster Hunter Rise. Haven't decided yet, but we're carrying on this wonderful campaign. Anyway, plan here is hopefully to do some counterattack soon, if possible, and push the Germans back in the north. Over here, we're starting to try and harass the German supply lines, potentially hoping to cut them off or put pressure on Psychov to slow down the movement of their reserves. We're moving down some reinforcements to reinforce, and we've encircled some divisions in the centre, which I'm hoping we can exploit shortly and hopefully cause some issues in the north. In the south, Smolensk is really in a bad spot now. We've been pushed back rather severely, and now they are set to close the gap on our fort, which is not very good. Okay, looks like I can move troops, which is unfortunate. Altogether, our units are still pretty weak, which is unfortunate. However, we are beginning to gain momentum, and fingers crossed we will be able to counterattack soon. Or at least buy time until to the winter when we can begin our counterattacks. We are trying to contain the centre push, and you can see all our battered up units are to the east trying to gain reserves, and to the south we are beginning to come under pressure under another German army, although I'm unsure whether or not I can hold this push, but we will find out shortly as well. So I've moved more reserves up. Fingers crossed next turn we'll be getting more reserves, and down in the south we're finally beginning to lose Kiev, which is unfortunate, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. After the breakthrough down at Odessa and Kiev, we've now had to withdraw back to the Stalin line, and from there we're going to hopefully try and reinforce and build up more defences, so when I do break through we can potentially counterattack. I'm going to check my reserves now to see if I can get more reserves to come in this turn and see how that goes. Let's take a look at our reserves, shall we? So we have a load of tank reserves, but a lot of them aren't very powerful apart from this one. So I'm going to send this one to... How do I send these guys? Oh, I can't live in red, so they've already gone to the reserve, so I won't be able to bring them back. Instead, we'll begin trying to put anything that's around level 3, level 4 down to the northern front or to the map. And this will hopefully buy us some more time. So anything that's really a 3.7 now, we're just trying to scrape the barrel when it comes to our reserves, sort of buy time for ourselves. Which is unfortunate but necessary. Still, we've had no guard units yet, but it's still early days really in terms of the campaign. We have a load of cavalry units which we could use to fill up the map as well, so we'll start deploying cavalry units. Anything that's 1.5 will start moving to the map. Cavalry units don't appear very strong, but at the end of the day, I'd rather just have troops that can be of use to me rather on the field rather than have them wandering around as being generally useless. I turn down this music down a little bit because it's a bit oppressive. There we are. It's the same music over and over. It does drive one insane. They may want to do a music pack in future. Anyway, we've sent some cavalry reserves up. We haven't really got any marines or anything like that, so that's the best we can do. But for now, we're going to end our turn, and hopefully, fingers crossed, be ready to hold back the Germans one more turn. So supply is coming in. Let's see how well it goes, but I suspect the Germans will take Kiev or break through my defences soon. I do think I want to play The Witcher 3 again. I never actually played the DLCs. It might be a bit boring, but I just want to do something casual for the weekdays. I have a lot of units that need repair and succor after the barrage at Smolensk. So I think we'll play from turn 10 to probably turn 13, 14. By that time we should be ready, depending on how stagnant the line is. I don't think the line's going to be very stagnant. And Wednesday, I think it's Hoi 4 of Duel, so once Duel gets on Wednesday, we'll play some Japan, but I'm not used to playing Japan, so that may fail dismally. It probably will fail dismally because I haven't played it since the new supply meta. I may play a bit of it offline if I'm honest, just to make sure I don't do it too badly. Oh, the new Not One Step Back DLC, which probably turned China into a bit of a cluster, if I'm honest. Okay, first air engagements. None of my planes are up, which is pretty standard. I know you can send units back to the reserve theatre box, but I'm not really inclined to do so. I'd rather just have them build up on the front, if I'm honest. And just not use them on the front, rather than just like send them away on holiday to Siberia. We still have tank units, which is rather funny, and holding up that rail line, which I haven't bothered to get rid of yet. I may see if I can do anything dodgy with those tank units. We've slowed them down for a while, but they're slowly flanking my positions to the west. And they are beginning to counterattack with at least a small portion of troops in the south. Still, we have a rather large unmolested line just south of Valeri Luka we could start trying to do maneuvers on. But I'm unsure yet. Sort of semi-holding. There's no tanks there, which makes me quite a happy boy. But we'll have to see what those units do in the future. We still got to last a month as well before the rain set in, so it's still pretty vulnerable times. Still, no movement in the north at Smolensk, which is nice. We may move some troops down through that river line. Kiev's finally been taken. That was a battle I was worried about. I'm glad I haven't been able to move there. Might have a little bit. Good, the remains have been halted. And then moving more men down to try and break the south. And more tanks as well. I'm tempted this turn to be aggressive where possible. So in the areas where their army is very well concentrated, begin to advance and try and threaten their supply lines. Like there's an area slightly north or west of Smolensk, northwest of Smolensk, which has not really been molested that badly by the German tanks. And so what I'm tempted to do there is an attempted sort of pressurizing of the front to force the AI to shift some troops there just to contain whatever advances they're doing, because right now we're being very passive and allowing the AI to strike where it's strongest. Take a look at the losses. 89,000 losses, 800 tanks. They have lost 40,000. Wow, that's not bad, really. Axis totally lost 40,000 men in that battle. As I've lost only 103,000. Oh, 89,000. Let's take a look, actually. Let's take a look at the losses stat. Yeah, 88,000, 30,000. So the losses are going up, but so are the German losses. Anyway, any new events? Not really. And also, what was the end of turn report? They've got a high point of 467. I need 700 for a sudden victory. So let's end our turn, let the air do what it needs to do, and work out what we need to do from there. Of our 156 sorties, which is not a lot of sorties. Most of it is recon, sadly, but alas, it is what it is. Okay. So in the north, how are we doing here? We are slowly becoming on par with the enemy. But that's, I mean, slowly. We're going to move this unit over here to assist in defense of the east flank. That's a pretty weak unit. This tank needs to go back as well because it's pretty damaged. But this mechanized unit can be of use. So we'll send this infantry over here and reassign it. Yes, runs the risk of being encircled, but it can retreat eastwards, worst case scenario. This would be an interesting battle, but alas, I think it'd be a battle I would lose. And plus, there's still unmolested infantry on that left flank, which really is rather bad. So we are going to have to begin withdrawing soon. But I think I've got one more turn before I need to worry about a full withdrawal, so I'm going to withdraw back to the next line of defense soon. That unit is now ready to be of use, so we're going to move this over. Here. To go in reserve. And this army, this unit can now, this Leningrad militia can now move over on the left as well. Still no real force here, but I can begin some sort of threatening movements on the left. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start moving our infantry up to try and start doing some challenging movements. Equally over here, although we've still got pretty weak units, we can continue to do some form of harassment. Sadly, our encirclement has faltered, but we can now do some deliberate attacks to weaken the Germans in this sector. This tank needs to withdraw, so let's withdraw it. And this tank needs to withdraw. This infantry can now be unloaded, and these reserves can now be assigned to another objective. How are the troops here? Not bad. You can go in reserve. And these chaps can move or stay where they are. Lovely stuff. Tanks are depleted. These guys need to fall back again. Sadly, a lot of my units are now being rather rapidly depleted. I'm going to see if I can put a depot here. One moment. I've already got a depot here. I just haven't got that selected. There we are. I'm going to keep on manoeuvring our troops forward. And it's just to put pressure off Leningrad by doing this. Unfortunately, a lot of these units aren't particularly well supplied. You're on supply 44, you can go down to 3 for high. Yeah, and that's what's really causing the problems. So we're going to start moving our troops rather aggressively in the sectors now, just to divert German attention. As they've pivoted away from Smolensk. So what this is going to do is, though we don't have any repair units yet, at least I believe we still don't have any repair units, is this is going to force the AI to either retreat back, or to continue on with their supply lines cut. So this supply line means that there will be less rail hopefully going to the push that's occurring in the north. Put these guys on rail lines. Any troops that are ready, as soon as possible, move out. That's the plan. This infantry can start moving down to put pressure on the flanks. This infantry, if it's ready, we'll start moving that infantry up as well. So all infantry that are ready can move back to start doing containment. So unfortunately this unit is now unready, so it needs to retreat backwards to be... So we're basically rotating our troops. That's what we're doing right now. We're just continually rotating troops. So if we can't use them, if they're unready or they're depleted, we retreat them back and then move out a unit that is ready. Once again, we're just going to keep on adding more troops to this bowl just to slow them down. Just to keep on buying time for the boys. One of these units is unready, so once again retreat that back. Move this unit in instead and assign it. And this mechanized, let's see if this mechanized can do anything. So again, we're still pretty weak, so this mechanized is going to move down to form a reserve in this sector. Any troops here that could be of use? You're unready. That tank unit is ready, so that tank unit can now be used to further aid containment. This mechanizer is now ready, so now we're getting a load of manpower in, or we're getting now a load of resources in, which is really helping us. This mechanizer is in fact going to go round to assist any advances going on elsewhere. Good, making progress. It doesn't look as bad as I thought it did initially. Got some pretty strong units here. They can be used to wear the Germans down. Hopefully these guys will now be back in action, which they are. But they've only got a combat value of 1, but 1's better than nothing for me, if I'm honest. And this is a combat value of 1, but 1's better than nothing for me. That Western Air Command can get out. It's just been nothing but a nuisance this entire time. So Western Air Command, go away. Okay, where else were we? This can go back on there to refit. We got another level 1. Yeah, we're good. I can really slow down any advances now. As long as I keep on getting that sort of rotation going, we should be fine. Especially if I can start putting pressure on the sides. Look at that, that's a sweet level 6. Oh, 6 damage. Damn, we've got coal to reserve. Let's put these guys in reserve as well. These guys have got some really high combat value or combat preparedness. That's why they can do so much damage. These guys, on the other hand, have yet to really be worn down. So I'm going to have to be a bit careful there. So let's unload these from the trains. And relocate them to their objectives. Move this army back, potentially. Which I'm loath to do, but I need to get that supply further put through. Once again, any troops that are ready should be moving out to keep on resupplying that front. Let's keep on slowing it down, a bit like an org wall, basically. A glorified org wall. Further to the south, we have a HQ here. I don't know why that HQ is over here, but that HQ can fall back. Do we have any easy targets to the south? Not really, sadly not. But I know we have infantry here. So Kiev was taken, which is unfortunate. I do wonder if I can retake Kiev. And the answer to that is an overwhelming no. But I refuse to abandon it completely just yet. So infantry is going to move down. This unready HQ can move in to be resupplied. And this guy can just chill as well to be refit. Finally, the 255th Rifles are going to move down, and I'm going to have to move this HQ out the way. Preferably over here. Let's see how strong this is. Still pretty strong, so I'm going to move a force over here. I've got to make sure they don't cross at Kiev, so that's a point I've got to consider. So they are going to take Kiev. It's just going to be a matter of time, but I can make them pay for every push. Let's assign the 40th Army. Put another depot here. And look at what else we can do. So first things first, get these boys off the train. The tank division that is battered needs to withdraw. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted the tank division. Okay, that mechanized is good to go. So that mechanized can move back up the line. Same with this mechanized, that's good to go. Oh, that's not mechanized. Same with this mechanized, that's good to go, so this can move forward. And then that tank unit can now retreat back to that depot, where it will then be refit. Sadly, that tank was reinforced, which is unfortunate, but sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. Or that cavalry unit was reinforced. I know, we can start trying to be aggressive here. And that should hopefully keep on really putting pressure on these guys. This guy's battered, so he needs to withdraw to refit. And then we can work out what needs to be done to salvage the situation to south. Sadly, the south is still pretty vulnerable. There are open parts where their boulders are occurring, but nowhere really where I can begin to prey on the divided infantry. So until I can see that infantry concentrated, we're going to have to accept for now there's not going to be no offensive action. However, in the south, we are seeing a sort of a budding opportunity here, although we have some unready troops which need to withdraw. So in the south, we have two choices. Let's take a look. First things first, how vulnerable are these units? They still have some infantry support here from the Germans, which makes it difficult for me to prey on the Romanians by themselves. However, I'm seeing an opportunity to potentially try and push in a weaker centre, especially if these German infantry tries to punch up north. I'm going to keep on putting infantry in that marshland just to really just drag out that battle. In the north. I also have more infantry reserves in this sector, which I can continue to keep on reinforcing with, which is great. And I've also got even more infantry. Oh, wow, this is wonderful. So I'm beginning to see opportunity begin to present itself with these new reserves. I just gotta wait for the right moment to strike. Maybe next turn, maybe the turn after. for a counteroffensive. Like, we are beginning to do some raiding, but we may end up losing some motorized or mechanized doing this. Damn. Equally, we still have a large amount of reserves, but they're being refitted, so we do have to be a bit careful of these troops. I'm going to bring 34th Army down here and assign it to the northern front. A lot of disgusting infantry still in the north, which is posing a problem. A lot of well-equipped disgusting infantry, I may add. So it's time to begin the forest wars, basically. The forest wars are about to begin. So this is where we're going to work out where we put our reserves. So I'm thinking, if we send another batch of reserves to the north at Leningrad, this should hopefully seal off the advance, or at least allow me to reinforce or form a solid defense of Leningrad around, say, this sector. So I'm going to send another batch of infantry. Probably 2 batches. That's not how that works. No, that's because I'm pressing the wrong button. So another 2 batches to seal off that line of advance. Hello, random guy. Welcome to Tuesday, the second worst day after Monday. I think I'm going to evacuate the air wings as well, because they waste the tile. So any air wings in Leningrad are going to get moved out. There's no point having the HQs in Leningrad, because all that does is waste the tile. Good. Next batch of infantry, once more to the north. Even with low supply, the Germans continue to prove a big problem. There we are, there's our next batch of infantry. Where to put the rest of them? Alright, this batch I want to move down here. So I want to move a batch there, and then move another batch here for a counter-offensive down in this sector. The good news is we're in some pretty hard to traverse land, because if they haven't really got to the historical positions. No, the historical blitzkrieg was much more effective at doing mass encirclements and things to that effect. So what that means for me is that I still have a large amount of manpower in the pool. I still have a large amount of troops to maintain the front line, and I'm in still good terrain for defensive combat. So really, I just have to survive 4 more turns, maybe 5 more turns before the rains come in and the battles stagnate. And then I can work on building up my defensive lines, and from there, beginning potential counterattacks in the winter. So the next batch will move over here, just in case that line gets broken through. And another final batch will move to Kiev to sort of hold that in place. After all, it doesn't matter if they keep pushing, as long as if their flanks aren't secure, they'll have to withdraw or stop the advance eventually, or the Germans will just run out of supply. That's 2 more infantry. Next 2 will move to the defense of Kiev. I gotta move those HQs out of the way. I hate looking at those HQs. Because they look like units, so you think you've got a good position, when in fact you have a garbage position because it's just unit headquarters. There's an army's worth of headquarters scattered around the place. However, at this stage, the German panzers should be losing steam. They should be. They can't just keep advancing. Like, with the tank losses they've suffered in some of the battles, it's just not possible for them to keep on maintaining that level of momentum they had before. Okay, I've had to change my plan. I just realised there's a salient emerging in the centre. Not the best amount of reserves I'd had hoped to get, but I'll check the reserves tree now to see what other manpower we can pull out of the bag. Okay, let's take a look. Anything else up here? Nope. So let's go to our theatre tree. See who's coming in, who's coming out. Anyone any good? We have a 3.9 tank division we can send to the map. A 3.6 tank division we can send to the map. A couple of rifle divisions which are now bulking up. It's now become a dribble, which is unfortunate, but this is more than enough. As long as the losses remain around that 80,000 bracket, I can just keep on feeding my units. And the Germans can't, so this is really rather good. Nice. So far, so good. Anti-air units, yeah, we'll send a couple to the map, why not? They'll just get assigned to some random commander. And assign all these anti-tank units as well. Let's assign those mountaineers to the map. It's always nice to have some mountaineers. And then, of course, all these engineers. No. Still. Yes, the anti-tank, really, I want to keep on moving to the map. Anything else? We can assign some mortar batteries, I don't see why not. Nice. And altogether, that should be that. Anyway, let's take a look at the losses sheet. So in terms of armoured vehicle losses, so normally as a German, as a Soviets, you're going to be hemorrhaging tanks. It's just the nature of the beast, because your tanks aren't going to be as good as the German tanks. What you want to have is the German losses around that 260, 200, 300 mark, because those are very good tanks. They can't replace them. And so when it gets to the winter, they'll hopefully have a big old deficit in armor. So already we've done 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about 1,200, 1,300 German tanks lost, which is great. Equally, in terms of manpower losses, if you can keep it around that 30,000 mark, again, it's units the Germans cannot replace. But sadly, and equally, if you can stay below that 100,000 mark as the Soviets, you're also doing pretty well. In terms of sort of production, if we take a look at manpower pool, of course, ours goes higher, the Germans goes lower. The armaments pool, mine goes higher, and the Germans start lagging behind. So far, I'm not too worried. Damn. A bit of Haribo has got stuck in my throat. Anyway, where were we? I could start doing the defense of Moscow. Build a couple of forts, just in case. Still early days yet. I don't think Moscow is anywhere near being threatened just yet, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. Anyway, I believe that's the end of our turn. Let's carry on. I'm gonna go get a drink for my poor old throat. Alright, let's see what the Germans do. It's a good casual game. It's quite relaxing that way. However, I do like how the Germans have given up on Smolensk, or at least the northern part of Smolensk. That's quite reassuring, really. That means that they've probably given up trying to keep on pushing in that sector and trying to push on weaker parts. Now, if this breakthrough becomes anything, if we really start exploiting, I may just end up throwing all my reserves down to fill that gap. German air superiority once again getting in the way. I'll have to keep an eye on my own air to see what it's doing at this stage to make sure it's all got the right. And begins the turning of the flank. Oh, I'll have to straighten that line up now. Interesting. Psychov still remains pretty vulnerable. If I can just get that infantry just to push without risking my own flanks. I see a lot of damage being done. That's an opportunity I can't ignore. If those blue tanks don't do anything, that's an opportunity I cannot ignore. Those motorized being pushed off that position gives me so much room to maneuver. That's quite a horde of infantry they've started to accumulate. Oh my god. I'm seeing so much opportunity there. Those tanks are pushed with such little infantry support. That's so beautiful. If I can pull that off, that double encirclement, if I just mass my troops there, I can wipe out 2 army groups in 11 by turn 11. It'll be interesting to see how they maneuver their men after the battles. Some more solid work just east of Kiev by the Germans. But do I see opportunity here? I see opportunity here as well. They have a very limited rail line there. Okay, they're going to try and cross from that sector. Interesting. A lot of my infantry must have been pulled to the reserve there, because that used to be a full line. This is going to be a high-risk turn. A turn where I'm going to attempt to collapse flanks, depending on where the German units are now. I want to collapse that entire flank at Smolensk. I want that whole front to go. And so I may end up moving my troops out of divisions and just trying to get round, and it'll be a real hard battle to close that pocket down. But if I do successfully close it, that'll be the German tanks dealt with, and I can continue offensives. I got faith. Let's take a look at the damage, shall we? Show me the results. We've only lost 212 tanks this turn. We lost 48,000 men. Let's take a look at the enemy's losses. Yeah, we're getting good now. We're really good. There's lots of opportunity to be had. Let's take a look at my air wings. Flexible. Flexible. You can be assigned to the Western Front. You can go to the Western Front. You can do what you like. And Southwestern Air Command, Southwestern Front, Southern Command, Southwestern Front. And the Black Sea Air Fleet, you can go to Southwestern Front as well. Or the Southern Front, doesn't really matter to me. Here it goes. Let the air begin, and then we'll begin our offensive at Smolensk. I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling very confident about this. So let's deal with the north first before we, a bit of foreplay beforehand. So in the north, our positions are still pretty vulnerable. The flank is now being pushed in this sector. So now what I want to do is start withdrawing from this sector. Move that HQ in here under 8th Army. Move this out. Move the air wings out. Go away, air wings. Move an infantry unit in here. And start setting up that defensive position. Good. A lot of troops are now getting really quickly some pretty solid reserve strength now. think that's everything. You're on the train, get off the train. Anyone badly damaged? Not really. This is good. It's really good. Germans have diverted assets to contain me. These guys have got absolutely no supply. So that's pretty embarrassing. I may have to withdraw these guys. These guys got no supply. There should be a depot here. Build that depot. I need a depot there so I can keep feeding the army. Alright, here's the juicy... Oh, they've withdrawn a little bit to stop the encirclement. That's clever of them. And they've sent an army up as now to contain me. You just won't give up, will you? Oh! Counteroffensive! He says, not really the best counteroffensive. I had hoped for something a bit greater, but hey ho, you work with the cards you're dealt. You're still unready. Any more troops in reserve I can send out? That one tank unit. I'm going a little bit crazy here. Or not, because these units are hot garbage. Lovely stuff. I like the look of that. That's right. You keep running away, boys. You keep having to change your plans. While I focus on crushing the enemy here. You're unready, so you need to retreat back this way. Too many times you guys are called in reserve. Very frustrating. No more reserves. Put the men in. Stack up the lines. I want some thick defensives. I want a meat grinder, that's what I want. An absolute meat grinder. Reassign assets. Move that infantry division out elsewhere. I'm going to break this line. That's the last thing I do. I'm going to break this line. I'm going to send these guys wheeling, that's the plan. Reeling, not wheeling. You know what? Why not? I don't want to do that. Cancel. Why have I got that? Why have I got the Bryansk front up here? Come back over there. So this northern sector is still pretty weak. I'm going to send more assets over here, and send some more infantry assets over here as well, because a lot of these guys are pretty beat up. But I've got to make sure this is actually in some form of a coherent defense. Okay. Next on the agenda, I want to crush this fellow here. Didn't really work, I'll be honest with you. It didn't really work. Not the end of the world, but still. That's another contained pocket. They'll break those guys out, but I'll make them pay for it. These defences are still far too strong. That's a lot of high quality infantry they've got in this sector. Good. Still pretty strong area. You can tell by their combat value that this is still a pretty strong hard point, which is making it difficult to break through in this sector. Is there opportunities to attack here? I think there is opportunities. Apart from when they send their troops in reserve, he says, and then he sees the combat value in some of these units. Why is the air wing always being a complete nightmare? You want to go up to Kharkov, okay? You want to go as far away from me as possible, Southwestern Air Command. Oh, I know why Kiev's such a hard point. Because it's a fort. So that's probably why I won't be able to take it this turn. Anyway. This tank unit's still on ready. You're being refitted. We'll send that tank over to refit. Anti-tank brigade, you can move over here. Although I probably should move you towards the tanks. That would be a more intelligent thing to do, but hey ho, and I've done something silly already. That tank was supposed to be refitting and now it's unready and it wasn't supposed to go that way. Alright, Mr. Tank, go back up there. No ho ho. Run back over here, anti-tank brigade. There you are. My mechanized is back to full strength, so guess what, Mr. Mechanized? You're going to assist in the assault south. Jolly good. So they've got their armor set up here. The Germans. They've sent a small contingent to block my advance in the south. But is this contingent any good? Yeah, it's still pretty good. Where are they getting their supplies from? From this rail line which I've cut off. Fortune favours the bold, and I'm a boldy. We're going in. All reserves are being committed. Across the river we go. Damn you. So many units unready from the last assault. Good, good. And before I forget, the majority of fresh assets are going to be thrown down to that hole. I won't be able to encircle you today, but I'm just going to put so much pressure, I'm going to force you back. I'm going to drive these guys back. So even if the Germans do push through to I'm going to have so much of a human wave coming through the north unless they pull off all their assets to stop me. They're not going to make a lot of territorial gains. At least that's the plan anyway. And by cutting this rail line, I should also be doing a lot of damage to their supplies in this little salient. I'm going to say 3 of the reserves are going over here. or 6 divisions are going to be dedicated to that role, for the exploitation. And potentially I could send some divisions also down to the south to help push against the Romanians. That might also be a good idea. Sadly, never-ending rail lines are a bit of a nuisance, but it's the price one has to pay for greatness. I'm starting to see cracks in the Germans' armour. They have strong punching troops of infantry, but over the past couple of turns they have not made a lot of progress, and my infantry just keeps on being able to resupply and reinforce the front. So I'm beginning to see blood in the water here. I'm thinking, if I can apply enough pressure and if I can get enough reserves, I know I won't be able to fight them pound for pound, but if I can just throw enough manpower into these engagements, so when the first wave is knocked back, the second wave keeps on making ground, I can potentially win this or do a devastating blow. That's what she said. I'm not going to put any infantry down there. I don't really care if they push there. I don't care anymore. The main effort is the punch through in the south. Let's punch through in the north. I want to draw the north into catastrophe. And there are more units over here. And then I'm going to rail my last batch of reserves back up to Leningrad for the next stage at the defense of Leningrad. I've got this. The German punch is stopped. It's faltered. The tanks have faltered. Their infantry still packs a punch, but they can't exploit very well that infantry. So as long as I can keep feeding or rotating my troops from battle to reserve back to battle, we should be alright. Make sure I've got troops beginning to be placed on every tile. There we are. For the defense of Leningrad. Which is going pretty well. And then where's my last batch of reserves? Lovely stuff. So where to put you? I can continue to put you up by the north by Lake Ilmen or Lilmin to put pressure, but it's going to be limited because I can't repair the rail lines, so I'm not going to be able to make a lot of progress here in the low supply areas. I can continue to put troops down in the south, continue to wear down the German advance. I'm going to put it there. I'm going to pincer those tanks. I am going to pincer those tanks. They push too far forward. They don't have a rail line, they're across marshes. That is a extremely vulnerable tank position. It's just that if I can get troops to commit to it, if I can get my troops in that position, that thin line, and hold it against the German waves, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5, I reckon. 5 tank divisions just wiped. But we will see. Keep feeding in the reserves. God, I'm glad I found that reserve table. That reserve table has basically saved me. Without that reserve table, things could have gone a lot worse. And then let's do our auto deploy. Make sure everyone is happy. They're going to try and push through from the north here. Let's send those tanks up to reserve up there. Any new reinforcements we are going to have to commit there, because if we don't, we're going to run the risk of the tanks coming. I'm going to build a fort on Donetsk. And I'm going to delete that port, that Rayard depot. Put this to a high priority port. Turn to a category 4 port. Where's the southern front anyway? Oh, there's already a category 4 port, but you know how it is. Another category 4 port is always nice. Alright. Casualties this turn. 46,000, 25,000, turn 11. Armoured vehicle losses, 131 to their 58. So it seems that every sort of even turn, or when I have a turn, they take less losses. And then let's go to our pool. Let's go to the Soviet reserves. Have I got any more troops to deploy in this stage? Not really. I've got loads of tanks and reserves which I can't really use. I can't use these air wings, sadly. Status. These are the garbage what's left. Okay. Deploy as much of these to the map as possible. And the construction units to the map. dig in, fortify, do what you need to do, just not one step back. It's these units I'm worried about. Because now they've sent infantry up there, the infantry will beat mine on the square battle, but there's not much I can do about it. You could do a lack of depot here is a bit of a nightmare. You should be getting supplied out the arse here, boys. This is a tempting thing to go for, tempting prize, but alas, I don't think I'm going to pull it off. I could build another line of forts if we wanted. Why not? Really just fortify Leningrad to the bone. Oh yeah, I can't build forts on this area. Reserve, 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 reserve. Good. Fairly no bullying of this unit as yet, but we're getting there. We're getting to a position where we can start inflicting some heavy, heavy damage. Ah, Novgorod. Damn, I forgot there's a depot there. They're going to take that this turn and get some supply. I will say the first few turns of the Soviets is interesting when you're running from the Germans, but from like turn 6 on to now, there's not a lot going on. It's just you retreating and building defensive positions. It can be quite boring from a Soviet perspective at this stage because you're not really doing much. But maybe that's just me because I've given a load of stuff to the AI. Like a lazy boy. So this is the countdown to the rains. So from September 7th really to the start of October. The start of October is when the rains begin and combat basically ends. So this is the sort of the time frame where I've got some time to rest and recuperate. However, you can see I'm not trying to rest or recuperate. I'm trying to go on the offensive. So we'll see how this plays out. But October really till the winter when it snows. When it gets the first snow, that's when the engagement continues again. But until then, You're not going to see a lot of movement along the line because the Drazina will come in and make things rather difficult. Interesting. Go on, keep trying. Keep trying. Now you're reacting to me, Germany. Yes, you're acting to Papa Stalin now. Not the other way around. Go on, keep trying, Romania. Wear yourself down on my line. They've withdrawn from the pocket, which makes things a bit awkward. That means I'll just have to withdraw back across the river. Still, it did its job. That diversionary punch did its job. I don't think it's over yet. I think there's still plenty to play for in this sector. I think abandoned Kiev. Interesting. Interesting strategy, Mr. Germans. The key issue I have is I cannot close their pockets in one turn. I mean, the Germans always have time to readjust their lines, which makes things very difficult for me. So that lack of Smolensk is going to really start wearing on those German tanks. Please leave those tanks in that pocket. In that very vulnerable position. Let's do it. You know you want to. You sort of knew that was going to happen. I'm going to have to move troops to reinforce Leningrad again, because now their tanks are once again began to concentrate, but they're weaker than they were, so I'm not too worried there. And they're moving infantry again, but I don't know where they're moving their infantry to. If I just had more, if I had faster units, I could crush so many. There's so much opportunity here if I was Germany with those panzer arms. I know I could reorganize my tanks, but I need them to support infantry. Fortress Leningrad is not going to fall anytime soon. That can be assured. I'm quietly confident about the survivability of Fortress Leningrad. So I think I'll do one more turn after this. Or I'll go to turn 13 to see where we're at. And then we'll move on from there, because it's been a long stream and I've got work in the morning, so we've got to bear that in mind. And I also want to play more of The Witcher, Witcher 3, because I'm enjoying playing that again. And I'll play it offline. Okay, let's see losses. 700 tanks, 60,000 troops. Wonderful, as in wonderful in terms of not losing too much infantry. In terms of what the Germans lost, still around that 25,000 mark. Again, troops the Germans cannot replace, and well, more like the equipment the Germans cannot replace. Once again, let's let the AI do its thing. I love it. I'm smelling blood in the water here. Right now the Germans are trying to counter my encirclements, but if it's this early on and they're having to counter, then I'm feeling quietly confident that once it gets to sort of 1942, I'm going to really start putting the pressure on. Once again, let's look at the north. Some German tank assets attempting some form of weird encirclement in the north. Let's retreat that back. Let's treat one of those infantry units back just in case. You're unready. You can go in there. What have we got vulnerability wise? That's quite nice. Not as nice. Not as nice. Sadly, no effect. And that unit is unready now. So I need to move this mechanized back. If possible, which I cannot do. Let's move this infantry forward then. Keep these fellows in reserve. Oh, we got a guards unit. Wonderful. Guards units are extremely powerful, and if they keep on winning battles, then yeah, very good. Very, very important to have guards units. Leningrad's going to hold. With this many troops in this sector, Leningrad's going to hold, and I can begin preparations for a counterattack on the left. Move back to troops that are unready to go in reserve. Some units are being withdrawn from the field, but nothing too stressful just yet. Yes, very good. The first route. I take one infantry unit and send it north into the forests. I didn't want to do that. That was a bad idea. Let's retreat that unit back. Soon, soon, comrades, soon you'll be speaking fluent Russian. Alright, you're in ready, you can retreat back to get ready. That tank unit can now be redeployed. And this unit is refitting. Okay, so what have we got here? Looks like we've got delicious opportunity. It's just like a tank thrust at Smolensk, which I need to counter. So these mechanized are going to move back up north. And then we'll see what I can do with this infantry here. Not a lot. And these guys need to retreat back because they're unready. Alright, first things first. Let's set about trying to contain any potential risky advances by the German armour now that it's redirected its assets back to Smolensk. Nice, 5th Guards, I love it. Really starting to cook with fat here. Crushed that position overwhelmingly. We've got some delicious tanks here as well. Good. That 5th Army can move up. There we are. And that infantry can be now of use, so we'll move that infantry forward. We're going to have to send more reserves to this sector, but it's okay because this sector's just been abandoned, leaving me to just mop up any units here. There's potential here, but it's really dangerous potential. I think I still got units I can circle over here, I'm not sure though. Oh no, they're gone now. What a shame. Yeah, still not very good stats, like bad stats. You're ready. Retreat back to the depot. That tank can withdraw and go into reserve. That tank unit has got no supplies, so you can retreat back as well. Got some infantry concentrations in the north, which they may try and break through on. We'll just have to see. That's a position we won't be taking anytime soon. Okay, let's try and work out what we did here. Another unit that's unready, that needs to be withdrawn back. Good. And then my mechanized troop to be unloaded. And let's try and look at the situation. So Kiev's going to be a tough nut to crack until I can get even more manpower in this area. Equally, they are beginning to do some manoeuvring to the north, which is posing a problem. So new reinforcements are going to have to come down to contain this advance. We've managed to force a retreat from the Donetsk area, which is great. Great news for us. However, they are beginning to put pressure on us further to the south, which is a bit of a problem. So that mechanizer is going to come up and form a reserve body as well. Any unready units can be told to withdraw and refit. This is basically older cavalry. The older cavalry has to withdraw. Which means that I've got to send something else out to hold that position. Is it possible to use these tanks for anything? Still far too early to even attempt it. And we're so well dug in. It's best to just keep on putting pressure in the north where we can. Let's just take a look to see how strong these units are. Not very strong in the slightest, so yeah, we have got some potential here for some cheeky maneuvers. Another mechanized. God, I love mechanized. So what I'm thinking is to send more assets down here, if we have any more assets. Send assets to further continue to persecute the push here. Send assets to contain this front, which is growing more and more excessive every day. And send assets to potentially contain around Smolensk once again. We've got so much infantry here, we can really do damage if we want to. It's just about getting everyone in position but ahead of time in preparation for any pushes we make. So what have we got reserve-wise? Damn. Not a lot. Oh, we've got a few. It's just that they're on top of tiles, so we need to send the first batch to contain the very large and excessive push occurring to the south here. And I'm seeing a few tanks there as well, which is concerning. I think the German tanks are spent. Before they would just break through me and I'd be running, but now, at best, they're slowly containing me bit by bit. So more assets, of course, to this sector. Keep on getting those guards units as well, because the guards units give me, I think, buffs, but I'll have to check. And then the other infantry units I'm going to dedicate to the south, just to help against the Romanians. The Romanians still are packing quite a hefty punch, but over time they'll get weaker and weaker. And they won't have the reserves to refill, so I'm going to send some troops down here to this sector to contain. And winter time is where it's going to be wonderful. Winter time, I think, is when the Germans are going to be struggling logistically. And because my guys have been so well dug in, and we haven't taken such many casualties, we will just begin to grind them down. Touch wood. I like this game. It's a good game. It's a slow one. It's a slow one, but it's fun. Something really rewarding about surviving. It's a game that, if you play it wrong, you just lose the game completely, because the stakes are so high each turn. But if you play it right, getting a victory or slowly turning the tide just feels so rewarding. Bear in mind that from turn 0 to 6, I've just been slapped about by the Germans for like 4 hours, and now I'm beginning to get my revenge. A few lone units getting encircled, a few lone units getting routed, slowly stacking up over time until I build up that ultimate killing blow. More troops for that dedicated push. I'm tempted to come crashing down on that pocket right now, but again, it would take me one turn to get there, and then I don't think my units are strong enough just yet to really bring the pain. And this unit can go over to, not Leningrad. This area is fine. It's perfectly well supplied. They've got enough troops here to maintain for a very long time. This army is going down to Leningrad. Leningrad is a concern because the German panzers have redirected the assault now back to Leningrad. Damn it. Still, without Smolensk, they like, if you look at the rail line. So you got the rail line from Minsk, which goes all the way up to here, and then up to Smolensk. And Smolensk basically feeds the offensive for Tula and Orel. But it also sort of, without capturing this rail line as well, it limits the supply going up to Psychov and to the rest of the units up north. So if you don't take Smolensk, you're effectively really struggling to dominate the position. And these guys have yet to take Smolensk, so supply-wise, they should be really struggling in this sector. I mean, this is a very thin rail line that's feeding them. Equally, although they've got some ports in the south, without maintaining or protecting this rail line, which I'm sort of punching into now, they're going to be struggling to maintain and feed their troops. So altogether, strategically, I'm doing very, very well. But I suppose we'll find out next turn. So let's find out what the results are next turn. Let's do depot management. and then go from there. I'm hoping we can get that. If we can get this, we're really good. Let's find out. I feel like the best way to get guards is to win defensive battles. Like, I've had these guys in reserve, so they reinforced and got guard status, which is great. Smolensk is where it's going to be a bit iffy if they decided to really dedicate the bulk of their offensive to retake Smolensk. In the meanwhile, let's Alt-Tab, shall we? I'll let the game play in the background. Let's see if it's actually playing in the background. No, it isn't. Oh, okay. I guess I'll have to watch it. Fine. Fine. Let's see what you've got planned for Mr. Germany. So not many turns we've played, sadly, but altogether not too bad, really. These have been turns of great impact. And we are beginning to see a sort of a faltering in the German war machine. I think that's also the partisans helping. You can see the little red marks. I believe that means partisans, a little red stars, which cause interdiction. I didn't send any troops to reserve, but okay. Okay, it's not the end of the world, comrade. Let's see what we got, Germany. What have you got for me? Show me the money. I've broken their encircled tank division out. And they're inflicting quite a lot of damage. New reserves or reinforcements go to that sector. Interesting. That's really interesting. Strong breakthrough by that infantry. But it was to be expected. The infantry hasn't yet to be really tested in the north, and it's still got pretty high combat value. I still smell opportunity in the water. Or blood in the water, if that's more accurate. Those tanks can't have any real gas left in, really. It's September 14th, they really should start struggling. Especially without that main supply line. Hmm. Still, that whatever has happened has meant that I've just been able to divert German panzer attention away from constant pushes. So it doesn't matter really. I'm still quite happy with the end result. In fact, I've just delayed them for 2 or 3 turns in this sector and prevented them from continuing their advance. That's pretty common knowledge that was going to occur. I've been preparing for that defence for a while now. No, I can't see down there. Game, let me see the battles. I need to see the damage. Game. Good. Good. Not so good, they pushed me off that tile. Keep trying, Romanians, keep trying. A lot of that line is being sent to the reserve, which is a bit of a nightmare. I know it does warn me in advance, but it's still a bit tedious because it just means that my line gets weaker on that sector. It doesn't matter too much because I've got such a strong defense there, really, and I probably overdid it, but it's still a bit irritating. Oh, I just wish I had more men for you, Romania. I can't really afford to waste a turn manoeuvring the mechanized. They either got to encircle or not. And there's still not enough opportunity yet to do encirclements. But the time's coming. I can tell by the supply and how it's taking them a lot longer now to break my positions. I feel like the time is coming. So let's do a strategic recap for a couple of turns we've just done and see what the plans are for next time I'm on doing Gary Grigsby. I'll tell you how I'm feeling about the campaign, what considerations I need to take in mind, and what my intentions are. But for now, things are looking pretty good. It was a bit chaotic with the collapse of the Kiev line, but now things are getting a lot better. I can tell by my lack of losses compared to previous turns, and my considerable increase in losses for the Germans, that the Barbarossa is beginning to take its toll, and the troops are now beginning to slow down their advance. Equally, their supply lines are still choppy because they haven't been able to take Smolensk, and I keep on threatening their supply lines, and so I am now able to, with their weakening troops, begin to harass them a bit more. With that increasing harassment, meaning that it will slow down their advance even further, buying me more time to build up those reserves, hopefully by 42, 43, begin further counterattacks. So casualties here, 78,000, 955 tanks, 955 guns, 474 tanks. That's not a lot of tank casualties compared to my other tank casualties. If we take a look at our supply alerts, why not? Some yellow, but no red, which is great for me. I can live with yellow. And my strength alerts, not the worst. There's a few bad ones, but they're in reserve mostly, and I can fix them, which isn't a problem. If we take a look at our losses, I'll first take a look at the weather. So you can see the rains are beginning to occur in the north, but the proper Drazina won't really occur until October time. That's when you'll just see nothing but mud, and there'll be no advances made on the front. This will be great for me because it'll allow me to reinforce my men, build up the reserves, and start planning some forms of counterattack. In terms of manpower losses, 73,000 this term. Not the worst. They're still taking about 30,000 per turn, which is not really replaceable for the German army. If they keep on fighting that, they'll have enough manpower. They just won't have the effective equipment to contest me. So in the north, let's turn off the planes. Oh no, let's keep that on. I need this off. The Germans have almost completely withdrawn from the Leningrad defensive line and are now concentrating along this defensive line here. So what I'm going to have to do is withdraw these units back into concentrated defense on this sector and then attempt to harass by moving these troops further north again. And that will just continue to harass these lines and keep on forcing them back and forth. So this has achieved its strategic objective of diverting the push to Leningrad, and now the next step will be to withdraw these men back to a more defensive position and use the now strong amount of troops in the north to begin a counteroffensive and potentially either target these troops and encircle them, or punch further south and try and divert the German attention. Further south, I'm seeing a very strong concentration of Soviet forces, meaning that a counterattack is going to occur. I'm going to attempt to encircle and break through another encirclement and collapse this line. That's if I've got good points and if I can pull it off, but fingers crossed I can, and by breaking that line I'll be able to crush these units in the centre. Oh, not in the centre, but by this objective here. Turn off supply, yeah I did. In the south, the tanks have been going back and forth in this sort of counter-offensive, offensive, counter-offensive. Unfortunately, they broke out their encircled panzer divisions and are now once again trying to push further east. However, Smolensk remains still intact, and although I have no reserves this turn, I forgot to do it. I will be beginning to sort of put pressure in the north again and start trying to push my way down. I'm going to see what their strength is for these units and see if I can begin attacks. Any wounded troops will go back into reserve over here, and we'll keep on feeding troops back and forth using this reserve, counter-reserve, reserve, counter-reserve. Still, they cannot sustain this. It is not possible for them to sustain this punch through. The reason why is they have too many units on this sector and such a thin rail line. All I have to do is break here and take this objective, but I don't want to do it yet because there's still some pretty healthy and strong units I could counter-encircle. But if I can break here and take this objective, they will have one rail line feeding this entire front, which will be a disaster for them. So if I can just do at least a partial push in the north, I can potentially force another turn of them having the counter-offensive and push me out of Smolensk. Their fact is they haven't taken Smolensk, and that means I maintain logistical superiority, and they do not. And this means that this whole area is a ripe opportunity for harassment, potential encirclements, and in future when it gets to the Druzina, and when I get enough forces, a real big knockout punch, which we almost achieved, but we didn't really form that because their tanks are still intact. In the south, we're going to see complete withdrawal of German forces from this sector, which is interesting. I'm honest with you, very interesting. And so they must have moved all their troops up north for this big push. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these troops forward and begin harassment and potentially just push forward to this objective and this objective. And doing so, I'm hoping to attract attention down to the south, take this rail line, and even put some pressure on Minsk. But of course I don't have enough troops to have a large enough line to completely get that far, but this means I'll begin a pivot on this objective. Now, it's not going to lead to a mass encirclement, sadly, because it'll just divert troops in the next turn. But what it will do is it will again distract, deviate, and divert German resources. To the south, we're beginning to see more concentrations of German troops, which is becoming questionable, especially in the north. I did notice this earlier, but they are beginning to formulate some sort of offensive to try and push east of Kiev. But as long as I get more reserves, as long as these troops are pretty healthy, I'm not too concerned about it right now. They can push a bit, but that's not my concern. To the south, I was a bit concerned about the pushing of the German armour, but thankfully, because of my excess reserves which I found, I was able to punch through and once again harass the rail line where the majority of their supply is coming from. This, of course, forced them to deviate their assets back west to counter me, and once again bought me a few turns. These positions are pretty well enforced, but I've got some troops being pulled out of reserves, and the Romanians... Oh, what is this? I didn't want to see that. Go away. Okay, there we are. But the Romanians are beginning an assault on force to try and cross the river. Now, these Romanians don't particularly scare me, they're pretty weak, but when used in concentration, they will be able to beat me pound for pound. However, they do not have reserves. They can keep doing this, and as long as I've got enough troops to filter in, they'll weaken, and the weaker they get, the stronger I get, and I'll begin to turn my attention to them and collapse them down. I may be tempted to capture these two depots, but I don't have a panzer force here. If I had some tanks in the north, again, I've got a wonderful potential for some really pleasant counter-offensives or encirclements in this sector. But again, I'm going to have to check their stats, I'm going to have to check the enemy stats, I'm going to see what I can do with these troops. In the north, we're seeing a concentration of German infantry forces, which once again leaves wonderful encirclement opportunities. And I have enough troops to potentially contain, so if I can start deviating troops down here, we have a potential encirclement in the making to collapse this force down. but we will have to see. Anyway, what I'm thinking is I was a bit concerned over the past couple of turns, but since this period of time I'm playing, things have been looking really good. The tables have turned. There's only 2 or 3 turns left before the Drazina, so unless they achieve a massive breakthrough in the next 2 or 3 turns to take Orel and Kursk, they are really going to struggle to make any more advances. So in short, we're in a very strong and healthy position for attacks and counterattacks. And a lack of casualties each turn, which although 70,000 seems large for the Soviet Union, it's not large at all. We're going to keep on being able to resupply our troops in the field, pull out more troops and build more units, which I also forgot to do, so that is something we'll be doing as well. We're going to be building more units as well. More infantry divisions, pulling more troops from the reserve, and building up our forces as time goes on. Altogether, feeling very confident, very happy with the current situation, and the future's looking good, especially if this bulge is threatened. Like, this is such a ripe opportunity to do some truly beautiful stuff. If I can just break through here and capture here, they won't have a rail line. They won't have a rail line, and I can just wipe this whole pocket out in some beautiful offensive. But it'll be the German counter-offensive that breaks me, because they'll have still supplies for 1 turn, even if they won't be isolated. So we'll have to bear that in mind. Anyway, let me save the game. Save game. And that was the end of the stream. So I'll leave the stream up. Well, I'll close it down now, and I'll upload it to YouTube later, or I'll make sure it goes public later. I just want to make sure everything's in place. Anyway, thank you all for watching, boys and girls. I hope you had a good one. And tomorrow, look forward to a rather meme Japan game, because I'm all for Japan in Hoi 4. Anyway, I'll see you all very, very soon.